Good to see you, Ralph. What a good start today.
Yes, as is fully was expected, Francisque. We've got a loaded list of great guests today and all week long.
Absolutely. And team is on. We've got a world champion coming on. So we're going to ask him to start his video. And when team is on, we're going to start the session with a little video he wants to share with the audience. So we're going to ask him to start his video, but while we wait for Tim, maybe we can start with that little video. So I'm going to ask Reed, our producer, to maybe launch that little video about F1 Powerboat, and then during that time, we'll bring Tim on.
Formula One powerboats are sleek, glamorous, lightweight, and extremely maneuverable, with a power-to-weight ratio among the highest in all motorsports. Their performance speaks for itself, accelerating from 0 to 100 miles an hour in under 5 seconds, keeping it on par with a Formula One car. Top speeds in excess of 120 miles an hour while making 180-degree corners at 100 miles an hour, pulling 7 Gs in the process, making them the hardest turning race vehicle in the world. Formula One powerboat competition begins with a 20-boat field lined up at the start pontoon, with their engines silent, awaiting the modified Le Mans start. At the drop of a flag, the world-class drivers ignite these rockets to life, and their engines roar. Rooster tails shoot thousands of gallons of water as they simultaneously accelerate towards the first turn. This spectator-friendly racing on tight courses made up of right and left-hand hairpin turns with various straightaways provide deck-to-deck racing action front and center for the fans in the viewing area. No 2 laps are the same due to the ever-changing wind and water conditions, making an F1 boat one of the most challenging racing machines to conquer on the planet. The Formula One Powerboat Championship is an 8-race series contested across North America from May to October. Established in 2017, the series features weekend-long community events highlighted by the Formula One boats capable of speeds in excess of 120 miles an hour. Along with support classes of Tri-Hull and Formula Lights, the family-friendly, up-close and personal sponson-banging competition creates thrills rarely experienced by motorsport racing fans. U.S. Powerboat Racing heritage began in 1903, formation of the national governing body, the American Powerboat Association, that still governs today. Formula One racing for the last 6 decades has been the pinnacle classification in powerboat racing, recognized as one of the world's most spectacular racing vehicles. The F1 boat's lightning-quick acceleration combined with its razor-sharp turns, creating the unique non-stop action on the water. The races are more than a series of one-day events. They have evolved into marquee, multi-interest, weekend-long community festivals. Formula One Powerboat Championship Series produces some of the largest entertainment events in the major markets they visit, attracting tourism dollars to the local economy, while entertaining huge global audience. Large on-site event attendance and coupled with mass media exposure through various channels regionally, nationally, and internationally. Our live streaming programs give each event global reach on various social and traditional channels, reaching millions of fans.
Thank you and welcome back. Team is with us, so Ralph, we'll let you take over.
Okay, great. Thank you, Francis. Tim, welcome. Great to have you here on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So Tim Seebold is a 19-time national and world champion in F1 Powerboat Racing. He is also the managing director of the F1 Powerboat Championship. Tim, a lot of folks maybe have not had a chance to see an F1 Powerboat in action. Your video did a good job of explaining it a little bit. Can you take us a little deeper into what an F1 Powerboat is?
Oh, for sure. So a Formula One powerboat is a tunnel hull. So if you're familiar with offshore racing, it's just like an offshore cat. They're very similar in design. The Formula One boat is very light. It's got a high power to weight ratio. So at 1,175 pounds minimum weight with the driver after the race, and couple that with 275 horsepower outboard motor, you've got something that'll go 0 to 100 in less than 5 seconds. And it's capable of speeds over 120 miles an hour while pulling up to 7 Gs in the corners. So these things are very agile. And the big difference between one of these boats and any other boat that you see is the fact that you're flying this thing as much as you're driving it on the water. So you've got aerodynamics and hydrodynamics all working together.
Literally 90% of the time, the only thing that's touching the water is the prop.
Yeah, so if you look at the 2-seater right behind me, you'll see that particular boat's 18 foot. And if you're running on the last foot of the boat, that's when you got it running right. So it's a balancing act of when you accelerate, as you drive one of these, you'll come out of the corner, you'll trim it up, just like you do on your normal bass boat, to get the bow of the boat up. And what you want to do is you want to pack as much air in that tunnel as you can to get it to accelerate. And as you pick up speed, then you start trimming it down to level it off. Now, the whole trick is to keep as much air underneath it, make the boat as light as possible without too much, and then blowing it over and crashing. So as the water gets rougher and rougher as the race goes on, that becomes more of a trick. And then when you're coming down the straightaway, you've got it leveled off, you're constantly trimming the boat. Then you'll set it down, wet more of the running surface, so that way you can turn it. And when you're a quarter way through the turn, you're back on the up button to get it to accelerate.
You've talked about blowing over. Of course, that's the fear of every boat racer. Crashing in a boat is obviously different than on a motorcycle or in a car. There's a whole other element of danger brought into it, and that's the water. Boat safety, racing safety in this form of motorsport is greatly improved over years. Can you talk a little bit about some of the latest safety measures that have come along that have really helped make F1 Powerboat Racing some of the safest on the water?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, just like all motorsports, Formula One Powerboat Racing has evolved over the years. The sport's been around since, Powerboat Racing's been around since 1903. So as far as the Formula One boats, they really took off in the early 60s, 63, 64. But as we progress and refine these racing vehicles, then the safety becomes more and more. And it really got to a point in 1985 where they had to do something. So these boats are equipped with safety cells. So just like an IndyCar pod that you see, the driver strapped in, and the boat that is around him is built to take the blow, not your body. So then on top of that, we have had tremendous strides in the composite materials world, the process, the materials, and how you manufacture these boats for better strength. And then on top of it, now we have, there's about 3 of us that manufacture it in the world, airbag systems. So it's not like a car airbag system where it's gonna block you from hitting something. What this does is it will sink the back end of the boat and raise the front of the boat. So that way, if the driver's knocked out, this will raise him above the waterline.
Well, that's quite a development right there in itself. Boat racing, you race on lakes, you race on rivers, you race in a wide variety of different forms of water. You have to deal with different things that other forms of racing don't. I remember the first time I saw the F1 Powerboats in action was on the Sacramento River, and they had to actually stop the races. This was back in the late 80s. I know you and your family were competing back then. They actually had to stop the race because of logs floating downstream, type of thing we don't deal with when it comes to any other form of motorsport. You have to constantly be thinking about what the water is doing, if it's safe for your competitors to go out.
That's right. You know, it's constantly changing all of the time. So the unique things about powerboat racing is, number one, the vision. So with the spray comes lack of vision. So that's one set of issues that you have. The rooster tails that come off the back of the boat, that creates a problem because you can't draft. It's not like cars or motorcycles where you can draft the guy in front of you. You've got to stay off to the side because otherwise the rooster tail, the boat will actually just climb up that rooster tail and go over. So the other thing that's extremely difficult on these is the fact that you're flying them as much as you're driving them. So you've got to there's a fine line between all of that aerodynamics and hydrodynamics as you're racing, and the rougher the water gets, the harder it is. So when you know, unlike, let's say, an asphalt track, you know, if there's a turn, a bump in turn 4, that bump is going to be there every time you go through turn 4. With powerboat racing, the course is constantly changing and the rough water is moving down the course. So the bump in turn 4 might be in the middle of the straightaway the next lap, or might be in turn 1 2 laps later. So it's constantly changing, making it very challenging to drive the Formula One boats.
Your championship is a true national championship. Tell us a little bit about what your 2024 schedule is going to look like.
Well, 2024 is shaping up to be a fantastic year. You know, as all of us in motorsports and festivals know, that COVID really set us back. And it just seems like now we're coming back out of it and getting back onto par where we were. So we've got a strong schedule coming out for 2024. We haven't announced it yet. We're still putting the details on it, but we have got at least 2 new events that we're looking for. One in the Midwest that we're looking at, and another one down in South Central United States. But we will go from the beginning of April all the way through the end of October with our schedule, and it'll span from the East Coast to the West Coast, South and North. So we're really looking forward to a strong schedule next year.
As far as that schedule goes, you do televise your schedule. You do a lot of live streaming. I know at Speed Sport, we've been very active in working with you and helping to promote and televise F1 Powerboat Racing. In fact, we worked with you on the 2023 season, and folks can go to Speed Sport 1 and watch the 2023 championship. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, we're getting close to having that together again for 2024.
We are. You know, we've been doing the live streaming. We occasionally have it on national television, but one of the things that we like about working with Speed Sport 1 and the live streaming aspect of it is it gives us some latitude with our sponsors. So it allows us to custom make packages and do some of the things that you can't do on national television. And it really helps when it comes to giving the sponsors what makes the best sense for them.
And remember, Speed Sport 1 is completely free, so there's no charge to watch F1 Powerboat Racing. Just go to speedsport1.com to find out how you can see it where you are at. Your championship is highly competitive, Tim. What have you been doing over the last few years to help make the series even more competitive?
Well, I think a lot of that falls not only on the series, because what we wanted to do, we started this in 2017, John Schubert, my partner, and myself, and we weren't happy with the way that powerboat racing was going. So what we wanted to do is we want to come in, take a fresh look at it, and we felt that it had diminished in the talent level and also the equipment level. And since 2017, we have virtually rolled all the old equipment over to new equipment. And as doing so, 2 manufacturers in the US have stepped up and began producing boats again. And, you know, when you have that, competition feeds this. So the more competition we have in the boat building, you know, with the different engine packages, with the different teams, that's what elevates your competition level. And it just kind of gets into a frenzy and keeps building upon itself. So the teams have stepped up, and they are really have grown in the last few years. We've taken new drivers and brought them along in the sport. And I think that's important to all of motorsports, is the fact that you've got to have that feeder program so that way you can bring them along and bring them through the classes to ensure that your top Formula One class has good competition and experience when they get there.
I've been fortunate to call a bunch of your races, and there is a kid category where they're actually using boats where they're actually kneeling on the boat. Can you explain that a little bit and how young kids can get involved with this?
Well, you can begin boat racing as early as age 8. So we have the J Hydro division, which we bring to race sites that the water will lend itself to some smooth water racing. And we bring the kids out there so that way they can get some experience, see what it's like to get behind the wheel, and really use this as a training ground. Now, it makes a lot of sense for us because we've got a lot of second, third, even fourth generation families that have been in powerboat racing. My family, for instance, started powerboat racing in 1939. So when I was 8, that was the first thing that I was doing, was getting behind the wheel. And it really helps us develop and keep the sport strong.
Talk about a J Hydro, because it is a very unique boat. If it's something you've never seen before, these kids are not encapsulated in the boat the same way the F1 guys are.
No, it's a hydroplane. So it's a little outboard hydroplane, 15 horsepower on the back of it. The motors, pretty stock with a racing lure unit, and it allows the young kids to learn structure of following the rules, understanding the rules, knowing what the flags mean from the official on the shoreline as they're racing. And it really just starts developing them to understand more about powerboat racing, not to mention that it's the most fun that they ever have. So, to build powerboat racing, it's got to be fun, not only for the kids, but all the way through.
Yeah, you talk about the fun for everybody. That goes for the fans as well as mom and dad that are out there supporting their kids who are maybe chasing a career in this. Your events really bring a great family style atmosphere to them. And I know you work hard at providing a great atmosphere for your fans. Can you talk a little bit about how each one of your rounds is not just a race, but truly an event that incorporates the entire community?
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because that's a great point. Over the years, powerboat racing was a endurance race in the early days, and the courses were long. So now what we have done is we have refined that, made shorter timed races with different shape race courses, and all the action is up close and personal right in front of you. So if you come to a race, you're going to be able to view the entire race course from your spot that you're sitting. That is a big deal to us. One of the things that we have done in the last few years is we have done more events with other disciplines of boat racing. So we have raced with P1 offshore, OPA offshore, and we've done races with H1 unlimited hydroplanes. And what we feel with this type of package is it creates nonstop water action, and it allows for different disciplines to kind of promote each other. And it really gives a variety for the fans and gives them just all different types of aspects. So it's more of a festival than just a race.
When I talk to your sponsors, they talk about how great the return on investment is for their participation in F1. Can you talk a little bit about how your sport and what you're doing with F1 Powerboat Racing has become such a sponsor-friendly atmosphere?
Well, I think that sponsor-friendly is the key. And in order to accomplish that, you have to have flexibility. The whole structure and the landscape of sponsorship and motorsports has changed tremendously in the last 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So you have to be flexible with your packages and what you can offer the sponsors. It's got to be business to business related. A lot of times it has to be personal on some basis. So connecting the sponsors with a team, connecting sponsors with an event, that really makes sense, where the sponsor can come in, bring their customers in, and give them a unique experience that they're not going to get somewhere else. We've done that with the two-seater. So we've got a two-seat Formula One boat that we can give some VIP and corporate rides with. And that just really tops off the whole experience.
I'm saving my ticket for that. I tried to do that at Havasu with you, and the Mother Nature didn't allow it to happen, because wind is an issue for you, is it not?
Oh, it sure is. Powerboat racing is an open air festival, really. So one of the challenges that we run into is the fact that it's ever changing. And every time you go to a new race site or a race site, you're building that whole race scene from scratch. The entire event, the entire layout, all of that has to be built from when you're there on Wednesday through Sunday. So it's a little more difficult than going to a racetrack that is there all the time and has grandstands in place where you can usher their fans in, and it's pretty simple. But we've worked around that, and we've gained a lot of experience to make that a more enjoyable fan experience. I think the other thing that helps us too is the fact that we have open pits. So our fans can go in and interact with the race teams, the race drivers, and really get an understanding of what it takes to put that boat on the water and to get on the podium.
Yeah, it truly is a great racing environment for the fans. In fact, one of your fans from Colorado just chimed in on our chat. If you'd like to interact with the chat, please feel free to do so. Send us your questions. And he wrote in from Colorado saying how great the event is when you visited Colorado in the past. I remember calling races from Colorado with you, a tremendous venue. And I'm thinking about a lot of our folks that are watching here today who might live near a body of water that are thinking, gosh, I know of a lake or a river that would be great for this form of racing. How do they reach out to you and encourage you to maybe bring your tour to them?
Well, some of it is from history. Some of it is we go, generally, I usually attend the teams. It's a meeting where cities come in and they look for events to put on. We are going back to Windsor, Colorado in 2024, incidentally, and that's where we always had the races there. Fantastic venue. It has some challenges because it's nice and tight, but you get up to 5,000 feet altitude, all of a sudden the horsepower is not what it normally is. So then you have a complete different selection of props that you have to use.
You talk about that for a second, because those that maybe don't get into boat racing that deep, the prop itself is really the key to making your boat go fast. How many different props will a team bring to a given weekend?
Oh gosh, there's quite a variety, but some teams will have 20, 30 props in there. And the propeller on a Formula One boat is your tire compound and your suspension all built into one. So you have different pitches, you have different diameters, you have different blade shapes, and they'll CNC them, but they finish them off by hand at the end. So you'll get props duplicated and they just have their own individual characteristics, and it's very hard to duplicate. And as soon as you find the one that works the best, that's about the time that it expires on you.
So props are like snowflakes, right? No two are alike.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They don't last forever.
So if a family is listening and thinking about maybe getting involved, there's some different ways they can do that. We can get little Billy, little Jenny off into the J-holes and get them started at the bottom. Dad can maybe start in a tri-hole before he progresses up to an F1 boat. What are we looking at as far as expense to start racing? And then if I'm thinking about a future as an F1 powerboat racer, what does my step up the ladder look like?
Well, our progression right now is we start them off in the J hydros and get them some experience. With some experience in J hydro, then we can get them into the other classes, which is a Formula Light earlier. And so a Formula Light is a 2-cylinder outboard motor. It's on a shorter, scaled down Formula One tunnel, really. That's why they're called Formula Lights. It is a fantastic class because they drive similar, and you're gonna learn things in the Formula Lights class that you will use as you progress into the Formula One class. Tri-hull is another one of our support classes, and it's called the Texas Tri-hull, and it's kind of an animal all its own. It's your let's say your bomber class, for lack of better words, but those guys like to bump and grind, and they like it wild, they like it rough, and they put on a heck of a show for the fans.
Yeah, it's definitely a more physical form of boat racing, isn't it?
Oh, it is for sure. And we've got Scary Jerry Rinker, who's 78 years old, still out there doing it. So, you know, it's whatever you're, you know, if you're into it and that's your life, because, you know, racing is a passion, and that passion crosses over into a lifestyle.
I have a gentleman who's reached out from Minnesota. Any chance? They got 10,000 lakes up there. Can you pick one to go racing on?
Well, that's a great question. And we are actually talking to 2 different venues up in the Minnesota area for next year.
Tim, as you sit back, you mentioned the fact that your legendary family has been involved in powerboat racing since, I think you said, 1930s. And here you are now, literally closing in on what, almost 100 years later. What's your vision for F1 powerboat racing going forward? Where do you hope to take the sport and the legacy of your family name down the road?
You know, our biggest challenge is to get more eyes on what we're doing. I think the program we have sells itself. What we need is more eyes on it, more publicity, more people like Speed Sport One, more platforms like we're doing today, as part of the education program of introducing this to more fans. And if we can progress the sport, that's how we're going to progress the sport.
If somebody is looking to find out more about the sport, where do they go and how do they get involved?
You can go to the F1 Powerboat Championship website, and it's got my number, my emails on it. We can also get you hooked up depending on what kind of racing you want to do. From there, the American Powerboat Association, and we can, they're the governing body for all of powerboat racing in the US. So reach out to me, reach out to us, and we will try and steer you in the right direction to make sure that we get you involved.
Folks from Cleveland just reached out. They'd like to know if any chance you're going to come racing up on the Great Lakes.
Well, I don't have anything right now near Cleveland, but we are open. So if they have some opportunities up there, please reach out and give me some information, and we'll see what we can do.
When you think about a venue site, what do you have to have? I mean, is there a specific depth of water that you have to have, or shoreline? What do you think of?
Well, there's all different types. Like you said, we've raced on intercoastal, we've raced on bays, we've raced on rivers, we raced on small lakes. So each one presents its own challenges. For us, what we're trying to do is get into a little bit a bigger tier market, so that way we can have more on-site exposure to the fans. But we've got to get the boats in and out. Sometimes we do it with a ramp, sometimes we do it with cranes. We've got to have a fan area, we've got to have a pit area, and that's all something that we can work through those challenges. So we haven't really been to a place that we couldn't race. We've always got it worked out. So anybody that has ideas, reach out to us.
F1 Powerboat Racing is an international form of motorsport. Talk a little bit for a second, if you will, about the international side of F1 Powerboat Racing and what's it like out there these days?
Well, the powerboat racing is strong on, it seems like, the larger levels. And I think unlike some of the other forms of motorsports, it hurts powerboat racing a little bit because we don't have the local clubs like we used to in years past that ran races more centrally located where you live. So that's kind of been a challenge for what we're doing. But we are just, constantly trying to get more youth involved. Now, the Formula One on the World Series, they race all over the world except the US, is F1 H2O. And they've got a great series that goes country to country, one race per country. And they've got about a 6-8 race schedule this year, and they're looking to add to it for next year.
What's your field look like, Tim, when you roll into a venue? Obviously, depending on where you are in the country, you might add or detract a couple of boats here or there. But on average, what's a field size look like?
On average, for a Formula One class, you're looking at 18 to 22 boats. On the support classes, you're looking at 12 to 16 boat in the support classes.
That's great. Francis,
Ralph,
I don't know.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
And I know we've run over a little bit. I didn't want to take more time than you had allotted here.
Thank you very much, Tim. I'm sorry, I'd love to keep you for another hour or two, but we have to move into our next session. We're going to still be talking about boat racing. So, Tim.
Registering on Epart Trade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to Epart Trade.